it's Erica. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do my December wrap-up. I read about 13 books in December, so I have lots to talk about. Let's just jump right into it. The first book I read is Deception by C.J. Redwine. This is the second book in a YA dystopian trilogy, and it follows this girl named Rachel, who lives in a city called Belboden. And in this world, girls in the society are learning to obey the orders of their male protectors and sew nice dresses. But Rachel has been trained to use a sword. Something happened in the last book where Rachel and the people of Belboden, their city was destroyed by these creatures. The characters in the society had to flee Belboden. Rachel is in a relationship with a guy named Logan. Logan was an apprentice to Rachel's father, who mysteriously went missing. And since her father went missing, Rachel desperately wanted to find him. Rachel still believed her father was alive, despite what other people were telling her. Logan is now the leader of these people. Logan does a good job at defending his people against other enemies or other people from enemy territories. Rachel, the main character in this trilogy, is strong-willed, and she's not afraid to question what her society expects from her, and she's not afraid to make her own decisions. I did find her annoying in this second book. She was haunted by different things that happened to her in the previous book, and she wasn't really open to communication with Logan. That's what annoyed me about her character in this book. She was just being immature and juvenile for my taste, so I didn't really like her character in the second book. I liked the story and plot overall, but the story developed at such a slow pace. It's not until halfway through the book that the story really picks up and gets going. I personally like when my stories develop a little quicker. I like something that captivates my attention to a story earlier on. I gave this book 3 stars. I enjoyed the world building and the story overall. This book just ended up being middle of the road for me. I could say the same with Deliverance. This is the second book that I read in January. And again, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good finale, and I liked how the story wrapped up. I liked that Rachel and Logan got her happy ending, but again, there wasn't really anything really good or really amazing to this finale in the trilogy. So overall, this trilogy just ended up being a 3 out of 5 stars for me. Next up, I read Fearless by Brigid. This is one of the novellas in her Elemental series, and this book follows Hunter. We met Hunter in Storm, the first book in this series, but this little novella follows him 2 or 3 years before the main events in Storm, when his dad and uncle are still alive. All his life, Hunter Garrity was trained to be a guide. Guides in this world are against elementals. They believe they shouldn't exist because they have too much power, and they believe that his power can really hurt people if they don't use it properly. Hunter is very quiet and shy, and he's really nervous around girls. We get to see Hunter's first experience with a girl, and he's trying to impress her by showing her his father's gun collection. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but it wasn't really anything amazing. The next book I read in December was Spark by Brigid. This is the second book in the Elemental series, and it follows Gabriel. Gabriel is the arrogant brother in the family, and the brother who's most often getting into trouble. This book follows his relationship with a girl named Liane. Liane is a quiet and shy girl who's very studious. She cares about getting good grades in school, but something happened to her in her past that she's still trying to overcome. She has scars on her body from being caught in a home fire years ago. She's not really comfortable with herself or comfortable in her own skin. I really loved Gabriel in this book. He's my favorite Merrick brother. I loved how naturally the relationship developed between him and Liane. Gabriel accepts Liane for who she is, and he thinks she's still beautiful, even with her scars. Liane also has a younger brother named Simon, who is deaf, and Gabriel helps him out because he's trying to try out for the basketball team. But because he's deaf, he has challenges with that. So Gabriel befriends Simon and helps him improve his skills as a basketball player in hopes that he'll get on the team. Because people can't be around fire all the time, Gabriel has problems controlling his power. Gabriel develops an unlikely friendship with Hunter in this book, and Hunter finds a way for him to learn how to control his power a little bit more. I loved the friendship that Gabriel develops and just how the story developed overall. Since Gabriel is rescuing people from house fires, he's doing a good thing, but the fire department in town actually suspects that he's the one starting the fires. So because of that, Gabriel finds himself in a tricky situation with the fire department, and just with his brothers in general in this book. The next book I read in December was Breathless. This is a little novella in the Elemental series. Nick is the good brother in the family, and the one who's always trying to keep peace between his brothers. But Nick has a secret, one that he hasn't told any of his brothers, not even his twin Gabriel. Nick realizes that he's gay, and he doesn't really know what to do about it, since he's never considered the possibility of liking guys, especially since his brothers think that he's dating Quinn. Quinn is one of the side characters in this series, and she's actually friends with Becca, whom we met in Storm. This little novella gave us a little teaser as to what his story would be like later on in his full-length novel. I gave this little novella 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed getting to know Nick's character and learning more about this tricky situation he finds himself in. Next book I read in December was Spirit, Hunter Garrity's full-length novel. All his life, Hunter was being trained as a guide, but everything he learned growing up from his father and uncle is questioned in this book, since he finds himself growing closer to the Merrick brothers in this book. Since his father and uncle died, Hunter doesn't really have a good home life. His grandparents don't really trust him, so Hunter is on rocky ground with his grandparents, especially since they don't believe him about what actually happened at the end of book 2. And Hunter's mother didn't really do anything good about it either. She believed Hunter's grandparents. This led to Hunter being kicked out of his house. So Hunter finds himself in a tricky situation. This all changes when Michael decides to take him in and decides that Hunter can live with them. And he has different feelings about what happened at the end of book 2 than Gabriel. Hunter also finds himself falling for the new girl in school, but Hunter doesn't know that Kala is actually an apprentice of a guide. Kala is trying to get closer to the Merrick brothers to kill them, and this is what Hunter doesn't know. But I found that their relationship developed really slowly, especially since Hunter is a character that doesn't easily trust people and didn't really think his feelings or his relationship with Kala was real. Since I had mixed feelings about this book and I was disappointed with the direction of the story in this book, I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. Next up I read Secret. This is the 4th book in the Elemental series. In his novella Breathless, Nick discovers that he's gay. We actually get to see Nick's relationship with Adam develop a little bit more. I liked that the relationship between Nick and Adam developed so naturally. And I loved learning more about Adam and his background and seeing the differences between Nick and Adam when it came to being gay and just the level of acceptance, their different personalities and just their different pasts and how this affected their views about their relationship in the present. Nick is also questioning whether he should go to college or not because Nick and his twin Gabriel have always experienced life together. So Nick is nervous about going off to college and possibly leaving home, and he's not sure how this will affect his brothers. We also get to learn even more about Quinn in this book. And in this book, we finally get a full picture of what her home life is like and exactly how bad things have gotten for her. She doesn't have a dad, and her mother is an alcoholic, so she's always been dealing with a difficult home life. On top of all this, we also get to see Quinn developing a relationship with somebody. The person she starts developing feelings for is Tyler. Tyler doesn't really like the Merrick brothers that much, considering an event that happened in their past. So this puts Quinn in a tough position, since she really likes Tyler and has feelings for him. But she's also best friends with Nick, and she's struggling with that in this book, considering that the Merrick brothers and Tyler have a long-standing feud. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked the romances in this book, and I really liked how the overarching story or plot in this series is developing. Next up, I read Sacrifice. This is the 5th and final book in the Elemental series, and this follows Michael. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, I was disappointed with the finale. I loved Michael in this book. He was a fully developed and fleshed out character. From the age of 17, he's had to look after his brother since his parents died. Usually he's pretty good at this. He's level-headed and always controlled. But during some moments in this book, you could definitely see the human and the less put-together version of Michael in this book, considering what he's dealing with. The Merrick brothers have always stuck together and been a strong family. But since Michael is in danger of losing custody of them, this completely changes everything and rocks his world. Michael is dating a woman named Hannah, who has a 5-year-old son. I didn't really like her character at all. Hannah seemed like a character who is living in the past or ashamed that she got pregnant when she was young, and she doesn't really seem to be over this fact, so she's not really comfortable with herself as an adult. She's also always getting into arguments with her father over little things, and she doesn't really seem that mature, especially not mature enough to be the mom of a 5-year-old son. I didn't really think that she had as much substance or enough substance to be worthy of a relationship with Michael. The only time that I did like her as a character is during a certain scene when she was trying to comfort Michael's brothers when they were waiting in the hospital after Michael got hurt. The overarching storyline with the guides trying to get rid of the Merrick brothers finally does come to a close, and I didn't really like the direction that the overarching storyline took. There was definitely a sacrifice in this book, since the book is obviously called Sacrifice, and I didn't really think this sacrifice was necessary. The other thing that I had a problem with is because Michael lost custody of his brothers weren't really present for the majority of the story. There wasn't a family feel to this book as much as the other ones in the series. The conclusion to this book was okay, but like I said, it was left open-ended, which I didn't really like. Overall, I did enjoy the book, but I had a few problems with it, which is why I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in December was True by Erin McCarthy. This is the first book in a new adult romance series, and this book follows the relationship between Rory and Tyler. Rory is a junior in college. She's your average, innocent college protagonist. She's shy and studious, since she wants to become a doctor. Because she's so shy and not really social, guys haven't really noticed her. And Rory admits that she's a virgin to her roommates one night after a party. They decide to enlist someone to take her virginity. This book does have a similar premise to it, like After by Anna Todd, but Tyler actually reminded me of Preston, and Preston is one of the characters from Abby Glein's Seabree series. Since Tyler has a part of his life that not everyone knows about or sees. Tyler is caring for his younger brothers. His mother is a drug addict and not really taking care of them well. Rory isn't sure what to make of Tyler at first, but when she gets a glimpse into his home life, she realizes that Tyler is actually a nice guy. Tyler is a bad boy, though, who's made some mistakes in the past, and he doesn't really think he's the right kind of guy for Rory. So he pulls back from their relationship, and I didn't really like the part in this plot. I don't really like when one of the characters think they're not worthy to be with the other one, so that they pull back, and this creates a miscommunication in the relationship. I didn't really like that part of the story, but overall I did enjoy this book. Next I read Sweet by Erin McCarthy. This is the second book in the True Believer series, and this book follows Jessica Sweet, who is Rory's best friend from the previous book, and her love interest is Riley Mann, Tyler's older brother. Jessica Sweet is used to having casual sex with guys, and she's never really tried to have a relationship with someone because she doesn't want the guys to influence her thoughts or her actions. Jessica is a preacher's daughter. Her parents have tried to always control every aspect of her life, and Jessica doesn't like this. She's in college and has gotten out from under her parents' thumb. She just wants to be on her own. This changes over one summer, when her living situation is questionable, and she ends up living with Riley Mann for the summer. Riley and Jessica have always had an enemies banter between them, and they don't really like each other. But this changes as Jessica gets to know Riley and moves in. I loved how naturally and slow burning Riley and Jessica's relationship was. They really go from enemies to friends to lovers, and I loved all the different transitions in their relationship. Riley doesn't really get out that often, and he's not really used to having deep relationships since he has a busy life trying to make money and provide for his younger brothers. He's actually trying to get custody of them since the brother's mom recently passed away. Jessica helps Riley with this in making their home appear a little nicer to social workers so that Riley ends up getting custody. But I did have a slight problem with this book, especially during a certain scene when it came to Riley's jealousy. Sometimes Riley's jealousy gets the better of him, and this is apparent during one point of the novel. I loved the conclusion to Jessica and Riley's romance, and the conclusion ended up developing a little further than I was expecting, and I loved it. I loved this book a little more than the previous one, so I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And the final book that I read in December was Hex Hall by Rachel Hawkins. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. I didn't really enjoy it. This book follows a girl named Sophie Mercer. 3 years ago, Sophie discovered that she was a witch. Lately though, Sophie has had a hard time concealing her powers from human eyes. Her mother and her father sent her to a boarding school called Hex Hall, where it helps teens control their supernatural powers, whether they're werewolves, witches, or fairies. I didn't really like Sophie as a character. I found her bland and boring. She just seemed like her typical YA protagonist. There wasn't really anything uniquely interesting about her. I didn't really like any of the side characters, especially the love interest for Sophie. When Sophie first gets to this boarding school, she meets the love interest, and from that day on, it's completely insta-love between them. There's absolutely no relationship development whatsoever. I also didn't really care for Sophie's parents or any of the teachers at this school either. The only character that I did actually enjoy was Sophie's friend, who was a vampire. She's the only character that I did enjoy. Sophie learns more about her actual true identity and more about her family as the story progresses, things that she didn't know before coming to this boarding school. I've read books similar to this before, especially one of them being the Fallen series by C.C. Hunter, and I enjoyed that book a lot more. It had a similar premise to this one, but that series did the whole boarding school situation a lot better than this one. So overall, this book paled in comparison to that series. My other problem with this book was I hated the girl hate that was evident in this book. Sophie hates some of the mean girls in this book, and the way she acts towards them is just annoying and a little juvenile for my taste. So that's why I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. Those are all of the books that I read in December. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos from me, I'll put some videos up on the screen in case you guys want to check those out. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. I'll see you guys in my next video.